From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 14th, 2017 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors, PM session. And I'll ask Chief Deputy County Counsel Gurujota Khalsa to report on actions taken in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no reportable actions from your closed session, and that's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalsa. The next item on our agenda we're going to consider will be the consent agenda. If you'd like to follow along with our agendas, they are available at the two back tables. All items listed with a CA or a CA above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda, and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So I'll read the consent agenda items. Starting on page 2, items 3, 4, and 5 are on consent. On page 3, all items 6 through 13 are on consent. I do have a correction to read on item number 10. In the first line where it says Budget Unit 2210, that should read Budget Unit 1960. But that item will remain on consent. On page 4, all items 14 through 22 are on consent. Are there any members of the public that would like to ask any questions or make any comment on any items on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board.
Motion on consent.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you very much. And this brings us back to page 2 of our agenda, item number 1, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. If you'd like to make a public presentation, please come forward. We ask that you state your name and observe our 2-minute time limit. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I just wanted to my name is Alan, A-L-A-N, Price, P-R-I-C-E. I'm the president of the Havilah Historical Society, Havilah Centennial Group. And I just wanted to thank the board for voting to replace the 1966 100-year anniversary plaque that was in such sad shape when you came up last April. And I'd like to thank the board for coming up and celebrating the 150th anniversary of the founding of Kern County up in Havilah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Gleason?
Yeah, thanks, Al. I appreciate it. We have 2 members from Havilah here today. That's a wonderful good example. But what I want to say was, you and your organization treated us like gold. You made that whole event worthwhile. You preserved the history of that area, which is so important to the future of this county, that it was just a very proudful day for all of Kern County to share that experience with you and your organization. And we owe you a picture.
No, you don't owe me one. I gave you a picture. You need to frame it.
Right, I forget what that was, but we got to figure it out. I don't know where that is. We'll find it.
Supervisor Gleason asked for a picture that we had above our desk for the 1899 executive committee that was ruling Bakersfield. And my wife and I had a copy made and delivered to the office. He just has to have it framed.
We'll get it there. We'll get it there, I promise.
All right.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Al, thank you so much, Mr. Price. Would anyone else like to make a public presentation?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mona Sidhu. The last name is spelled Sidhu. I'm here to ask the board to pay a little attention to one of the commissions that Kern County has, the Human Relations Commission. I have no complaints about any individual members of the commission. They all have day jobs, and they've taken on this extra task with a great deal of interest and dedication, but there seem to be some systemic problems. I've attempted to engage 3 times now with the commission, and 2 of the monthly meetings have been canceled of the last 3 due to lack of a quorum. I went in December, I showed up, and they said, we're not going to have a meeting. We don't have a quorum. I asked if we could just have the meeting to discuss issues. I understand often organizations don't take action if there's no quorum, but they go ahead and have the meeting anyway. And I was told, no, there'll be no meeting. I went back in January. There was a quorum. We did meet. Everybody was extremely responsive to my concerns. I went back to follow up a week ago after the meeting here, and the building was locked. I couldn't get in. One of the commissioners was also circling the building, and she made some calls and discovered the meeting had been canceled again due to lack of a quorum. There was another gentleman waiting to address the commission outside that particular day. It wasn't just me, and he was also had to leave. The issue I was trying to reach them about is I'm concerned about sort of the level of Islamophobia in our community and the lack of it being addressed or acknowledged or denounced when it occurs. Often other issues sort of take over, and I was hoping that this would be a good way, or a good vehicle anyway, to start the conversation going. We had a recent hate crime prosecution where the issue of Islamophobia was central to the case and yet was hardly ever discussed. And the resolution of that case also left a lot to be desired. There was no community service, no anger management, no educational component like you have for domestic violence or drunk driving, which I think is important to have in hate crimes as well. My time is up. I just wanted to raise that issue, that the commission could be doing a lot more, but there are some systemic problems. I'm sorry, I'm going to go
Yeah,
a
go
couple
ahead.
of seconds
That's fine.
over.
Go ahead.
We also don't have a full slate. There are at least 4 unfilled positions, I believe, and 1 member resigned in January, so there may be a total of 4 unfilled positions. I'm just asking the board to pay a little more attention to that commission. I think it could be used much more effectively.
Thank you. Ms. Sidhu, we appreciate you coming and making us aware of that issue. Mr. Calso, I know you served on that commission at some point. Do you recall, I believe that each board member has 2 appointments to that, but I don't recall if they have to live in the district. Do you remember? I think they do. I think that's one of the ones that is specific for the district. I know I have 1 filled and 1 vacancy, and presumably that's, that with that many vacancies, probably most of us maybe have 1 and have 1 vacancy, because I had my slots filled and then people have left. So maybe that's something that the clerk could make us aware of, whether or not we have vacancies, and then we can address that individually.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
May I ask a question?
Of course, Supervisor
Mona,
Perez.
which district do you live in?
I'm only a part-time resident of Kern County. I split my time between here and up north, but when I am here, I'm in District 1.
District 1, got it. Thank you.
The best district. The others are very good, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Anyone else with a public presentation in the audience? Okay, seeing none, then we're going to move on to board member announcements or reports. We are going to hear from Craig Pope, who heads up our Public Works Department, to provide a report on road safety during the recent weather events. I don't know if any board members, I know this was something Supervisor Maggard had asked for. Are there any other board member announcements or reports before Mr. Pope gives his? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Pope, it's all yours. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Ask the clerk to put up the slideshow. Just a reminder of the hazards of driving on our county roads when it is flooding. We have another storm coming in. Heaviest rain will be here on Friday. We're far from the end of our rainy season. It goes on through, typically through March, and sometimes on a good wet year, we'll see it in April. We have a number of roads that you're familiar with. This one is Edison. This is actually the road where, when the road was closed, we had a fatality on it. Things can happen. You just don't know what's underneath that water. It looks like, you know, it might be okay to drive on, but you don't know. These are very full. This is Malaga Road, Panama Road. This Panama Road where we diverted from going into Lamont into the sump system we have. It was successful. It was right at the capacity. As you can see, the water up on that barrier. If it had been any more, it would have spilled on into Lamont. This is one of our favorite pictures this season. Big rig goes down Panama Road, I believe this is, and he gets stuck, but another truck sees him down the road and decides to follow him. So before this was over, we had 2 trucks lined up there stuck. We heard from their corporate office that, you know, they were blaming us for the trucks being stuck. We pointed out that they went through road closed signs, and that was the end of the story. But what we want to bring attention to people is when a road is closed and you drive into it and get stuck, your insurance company probably won't be talking to you because it was directly your fault for what happened. And when the roads are flooding like this, you can see there's a little bit of dry pavement there, but you don't know what's underneath. You can't tell the condition of the road underneath. So if you're driving on it and you can't see the pavement, that's not a good move. If you can't see the pavement, do not drive on it because it could be a ditch like this. And like I say, we've had 2 fatalities this season. And this is just, it washes, it moves so fast, it just carries the dirt away. And what was a, you know, normal road with a shoulder on it is now gone. And here's somebody that thought they could get through. Well, good luck to them. And they're, like I say, their insurance company may not make this claim good because they did go through a road closed sign. Up in the mountains, we have quite a few serious concerns also. We don't get the same shoulder conditions, but we get cross water cutting the road, and it doesn't look bad, but you just don't know what's underneath it. Water crossing. It could be cutting the road, and you wouldn't even know it. And again, this is the type of thing that's underneath that moving water. Same thing. If you drove off into that when it was flooding, you know, it just wouldn't turn out well. There's a complete cut of the road. This is up on Cal Bodfish. Here's another one. This is up Pozo Flat Road. I mean, if you went through that barricade, it'd be about all you could do. These are some tips that come from the Department of Homeland Security and National Weather Service. Pay attention to the barricades. We don't put them up there because we like to do it. It's really our primary job during the big events is to try and block off the areas that are not safe. Don't ignore or drive around barricades. That's our best advice because we're out there and we've got a pretty good handle on it. But if you can't see the road, don't drive on it. 6 inches of moving water can knock an adult down. 12 inches can sweep a vehicle away. I've been in a Ford Taurus and started floating. That was a pretty interesting experience. Luckily, tires bit and we were able to get out of it. Avoid driving in water-containing down electrical lines. We have a number of spots we can show you where the power poles get washed out around and then they drop down into the water. So that's actually a pretty common occurrence. If floodwaters rise around your vehicle, but the water is not moving, abandon the vehicle and move to higher ground. But if it's moving, better just stay put in the car. After the flood event, be aware of areas where floodwaters have receded. You saw pictures of that. There's always a lot of debris that comes down with them. Pozo Creek was a problem last week, and we had entire trees, 2 foot in diameter, floating down and blocking bridges. I mean, that was our challenge, is to keep the water moving on Pozo Creek. We had big backhoes pulling the trees out as they hit it and started blocking the water. When they block the water, that's when the water has to find another path. Either goes up and over the bridge or off to the sides. Flood waters often erode and undermine roads and walkways. You saw good evidence of that. Do not attempt to drive through areas still containing floodwaters. You just don't know what's under it. Avoid standing water as it may be electrically charged, as we discussed, from down power poles. With that, I'll just say we did have, this last week, Pozo Creek was dry and in 24 hours was at flood capacity. We are in an area of flash floods. Lamont's the same way. We didn't even know Pozo Creek was on us. The rainfall that hit it and it fed it was in an area that wasn't populated. No rain gauges, no stream gauges, all of a sudden it's there. We had very little time to react. We managed to keep it contained. It broke out further to the west out in the farmland. It had to go somewhere. That's where it ended up, and then it perks in down there. It ends up fine, but we don't know where it's going to be. It just depends on where the cloud sits and rains. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Pope, thank you very much for that report. Do we have any questions from members of the board? Supervisor Maggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank you for making the presentation. It is, people have no idea what danger they're in, which is how people usually are. They're rather numb to their surroundings. And I just think it's something we ought to, I even think it would be a good idea to put something like this on our KGov channel, to run it in a loop periodically so people will know about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, March 7th at 9 a.m.
So moved.
We are adjourned.